The Laval Rocket are going back to the conference finals. We have our Ivan Demidov season review. And how does the news around the league affect the Leafs? I mean, the Habs.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode. And you'll notice we have a brand new intro by popular demand. The intro has been fixed. It pronounces the team name correctly. And we are brought to you today by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. My name is Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick, and I am joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Ian Boisvert, also known as Maybe It's Ian, in the Laval Rocket. Never in doubt.
No, not at all. Feels great. I mean, I'm on a holiday weekend. Getting to watch them win was pretty cool. Really, that game was not close. From the first 10 minutes, the Rochester Americans had a chance, and then it was over. It was never really particularly close, especially because Caden Primo looks locked in. I do not know. We're going to talk about the goaltending, but it should not be a story any longer for the reasons it has been a story so far. So that's the tease there. But Laura, what else do we have for today?
We want to talk about Ivan Demidov. I know he was here for like a hot minute, but we do have to talk about, we want to do a season review. And this one will be more of an outlook for next year, I think, more than anything else. And then there's a lot of news tidbits around the league, stuff that's going on. We want to talk about who's left in the NHL. We want to talk about, a lot of personnel changes in the front offices, and we want to relate them back to the Montreal Canadiens. So that is a very, very packed episode today. But let's talk about the Laval Rocket. So before we get into that whole thing with goaltending, if you were to say like who was the engineer for the win on Sunday afternoon, who would you say it was?
I'll give you two guys. Sean Farrell continues to just be a monster in the playoffs. It's incredible to watch this guy go. He's getting to the spots on the ice that should be impossible for someone of his size to get to. And he's kind of just going there unscathed. And Joshua Waugh, look, we have been tough on this player the entire year, and especially in these playoffs when he has not performed. Just like Sean Farrell, a goal and 2 assists in this one. I thought he was spectacular. He was going to the places he needs to go to be successful. He was not taking shifts off. The guy looked locked in. It's very exciting to see that from Joshua Waugh. The challenge has always been, at least, watching him this year, is stringing those games together and building that momentum. So we'll see if he can do that as the Rocket head into the conference finals against the Charlotte Checkers, the Florida Panthers farm team.
And I think that's the thing with Joshua Waugh is that he now has an opportunity to really prove it, right? It's the conference finals. And again, this Rocket team was top, right? It should have been an easy walk to here, right? Beating Cleveland and Rochester. Yes, there were a couple of games where they did not play particularly well, but I think that they have it in hand. You know what I mean? Like this series to me, or no, this playoff run to me has been the embodiment of that cliche. They want it more or not, because I feel like when I see the Rocket play, it's if they want it or not. So that's why it's really frustrating. And that's like, and I feel like Joshua Waugh is like a microcosm of that, right? If they want to, they can turn it on and they can beat any team. And so for me, like, that's the really, really important part, like, let alone the exciting part about all these prospects doing really well and getting a lot more experience and all of that. It's just that it turned, like, this team is just so deep. It's a deep team, right?
Yeah. This is the deepest version of this team we've ever seen. I want to give a shout out to Adam Engstrom. I think this guy looks spectacular. Just so calm, so much poise with the puck. He reminds me of all of the good moments we see from Mike Matheson. Like, he reminds me of that archetype of player, kind of a puck moving defenseman, in that he moves his legs to do it. There's a lot of guys who will do it via passing. Like Reinbacher is a first pass machine, right? The opposite is an Engstrom, and it's nice that most nights, during this playoff run, they've been on the same pairing because they fit well. You've got one guy who will dish the puck out and another one who will use his legs to do it. I really like what I see from Adam Engstrom a lot. Every game I watch of him, he does something that I think that's translatable to the National Hockey League. And I'm hoping that those things prove to be correct. And I'm hoping that, this playoff run, they go deep. Hopefully they win the whole thing. But then next fall, he comes in and tries to win a spot in training camp. I think that would be really nice to see that player do that. Especially, it's just been a steady progression for him. A lot of nights it's quiet. He's not making a lot of noise out there. That's why I said, like, the nice parts of Mike Matheson's game. Like Mike Matheson, we either notice for a positive reason or a negative one. Right now, Engstrom, it's all up from him. I really love his.
And this organization really likes cerebral players like that. Like, to me, that's what I see when I watch him play, is that he's a cerebral player. I would say less so with Reinbacher, but Reinbacher has raw talents that are much more evident. So when I watch them play, I really feel positive about the defensive soundness of this future team, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
That's
definitely.
what I'm. Yeah.
I was going to say about Engstrom, cerebral. When you said that, the first thing I thought was Marty is going to love coaching this guy, right? Because Marty loves guys who think the game in a really intelligent way. And I just see, watching Engstrom move his feet, you have to be intelligent with the way that you move the puck, because otherwise, if you're a defenseman leading the rush and you're turning the puck over, well, now there's a rush going back the other way, and one of those guys defending is a forward. So you can't afford to do that. He doesn't do that a whole lot, if at all, especially in this game. I mean, it was not close. We need to talk about the goaltending, though, because that was one of the reasons it was not close. Caden Primo, 27 saves in the shutout. Remember that our trivia today is going to be based off of that shutout. So hang in there. Laura, this controversy needs to be done, right? We cannot be going back and forth between Fowler and Primo. No. This is Primo's net, no?
I think just because Pascal Vincent said it, like, I think it's fine to be like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. I think he can totally come out and say, I'm not doing that anymore. Because I feel like at this point they're just doing it because he said he was going to do it.
I am of the belief that this is not Pascal Vincent's decision. I am of the belief that this is coming down from up top, saying we want to see Fowler in some games, get him into some games. Maybe that's what's happening. I don't have any evidence to prove that, but it's the only thing that makes logical sense, right? We're watching Fowler go out there and not play as well as Primo. Primo's been fantastic. I think it's so funny that now he has a legitimate opportunity to say, no, this is done. We're done doing this. It's Primo's net. I hope it's not true that it's coming down from up top, because yes, the Laval is meant to be a development first sort of team. This team has the chance to win a Calder Cup. Like, you can't, in my opinion, the development part of this has to kind of go away for a little bit and let these guys just play and see what you have in Primo. And maybe he becomes a trade chip this summer if he, stands on his head all the way to a Calder Cup win.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is that, if you ask yourself, why would they do this? Like, why would they want to see more of Fowler? It's because they're wondering if Caden Primo can be an asset that they trade away, right? Because otherwise you're just like, let him figure it out next year. Like, put Fowler in those spots next year.
He's going to be the starter in the American Hockey League next year. You're going to have all the time in the world to watch him play.
Exactly. It's just that I feel like at this point, though, because Caden Primo is like, you have to either qualify him, release him, or trade him. I think it's like the biggest question is they're trying to figure out if they can rely on Fowler next year. But, like, who cares? You know what I mean? Next year, if you make a mistake, just, like, get another goalie to be your AHL starter, right? Like, Fowler needs more time, just give him more time.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they'll find an AHL backup for him. I don't know what the contractual status of, like, a Connor Hughes is. But that would be a guy who could just be a backup, right? You can find another third string goaltender for the American Hockey League. That's not a challenge. So I hope it's the end of this, because man, Caden Primo, we talk about poise with Engstrom. Caden Primo just exudes poise. Nothing is bothering him. My highlight of the game, however, is there was a scramble in the crease, and Primo got pushed out, and his glove got knocked off, and there's a pile of bodies in the blue paint, and Primo jumps back into the pile. It was one of the funniest moments I've seen in a hockey game in a long time.
That's when you know a guy is dialed in and he's confident and you know nothing's going to phase him. So that bodes well for the AHL conference finals. In the meantime, let's go back to the NHL and do a quote unquote season review of Ivan Demidov, and that's coming up in just a moment here on Locked On Canadiens. Ever check your bank account and wonder where all your money went? I do that all the time. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center in your pocket. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery, an embarrassing amount, I have to tell you. But now I budget smarter and I save more. And instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan your long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is also smoother than ever, which is huge for me. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, we are doing our season reviews. We are going in alphabetical order, except for the goalies. The goalies are all going in one episode. And we're, hopefully we're going to invite a special guest on to talk about the goaltending. But next in our alphabetical order, we had Cole Caulfield on Friday, on the Friday mailbag episode. Check that out. We gushed a lot because it's Cole Caulfield. But now it's time for Ivan Demidov. All right. I think the vibes were good.
Yeah, they were in Montreal, but
Yeah.
that's not where his season started.
No.
His season started back in Russia with a coach who was very tough on him and wanted to, it came up after the fact. It came off as, him trying to do what's right for the player by, making him the 13th forward and playing him for 2 minutes a night, which is just, I've never bought that at all. I have not bought that. You should not buy that. It's not worth spending a ton of time talking about. But his reward for all of that was getting his entry-level contract. The first year of it burned off, which gets him a year closer to making serious money in the National Hockey League. And he gets to play some games in Montreal. And really, we have the 2 regular season games and the 5 playoff games to go off of. So 7 total games. He played more in the playoffs than he did in the regular season. You said the vibes were good. They're only going to get better. I think watching him play more next season and continuing to build the confidence and just every shift being him learning how this league works. I cannot wait to see him in December and see what he has learned through the first couple months of the season, and then putting all of his skill into the, as the answers for all of those problems. It'll be really fun to see. But yeah, there's, again, not much to go by in the regular season. So this is all going to be very speculative about next year. But Laura, we've kind of penciled him in on the second line. No, that's kind of where he's going to be.
Yeah. So actually, real quick before we get into the potential lineup, we usually do a word to describe the player or the season. So for me, my word is future.
I'll go early. We got him way earlier than we thought we would. Like that, the fact that we're talking about a season review for Ivan Demidov at all, he's here a lot earlier than we thought.
And that was the thing, is that all of that stuff that he had to work out in those 7 games that he played in Montreal, like it's an incredible amount of value, right? It's a very short amount of time, but the lessons from that are very impactful, because he played in a playoff series where the Canadiens were obviously not favored, but also they got pushed around a lot, right?
Yeah.
And he made some mistakes. Like he definitely made a bunch of defensive mistakes throughout those 7 games, which that he's going to learn from. Like this is the time that they could afford to have that happen, right? This time next year, it's not going to be the same way. Like this time next year,
Yeah.
he's going to be called upon to be the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the playoffs illustrated just how difficult it is for a player like him who had played very little in the NHL to that point to come in and make any meaningful impact, especially at 5-on-5 on the power play, which is sort of what we talked about a lot of in the Cole Caulfield season review. On the power play, it looks like he can be the focal point among the forwards on that power play as sort of the hub in which other plays become available, right? Before it was kind of, I don't know if it was probably Hudson who would be the one making the decisions and being the quarterback. But now if we see that that's not being effective, Demidov, if they choose to use him on the power play instead of Line, Demidov being on that half wall, opens up a lot of opportunities. We know Suzuki will be in the bumper recipient spot. We know that Slavkovsky will be on the goal line. We already saw Slavkovsky get one from the goal line, off of a play from Ivan Demidov. And we know Cole Caulfield will be on the other side for a one-timer or a wrist shot of some kind. So like it is shaping up to be an Ivan Demidov power play. And I know it's tough because I always want to try to manage my expectations. Exactly. Like I don't want to start, counting up goals for him in my head before they've been scored. But it's really tough with this guy because it's not just Canadiens fans and Canadiens media who are fawning over this guy. It's a lot of people around the league going, uh-oh, like Montreal has something legitimate here that's concerning to the rest of us.
Yeah. And that was the thing is that, we were watching the playoff series and it was 5 games and the Canadians were losing most of them. And all of the talk on the media, on Blue Sky and all of that was just how lethal this power play is going to be now that Ivan Demidov has arrived. And this is not Canadians fans or Canadians media. This is opposing fans and quote unquote neutral media, which I don't believe is a thing, especially not in hockey. But just everybody just being like, this is going to be terrifying. And you know what? And that's the thing, like this guy's probably going to be on the second line to start. We don't know what's going to happen. You don't want to break up that boy genius line unless you absolutely have to.
You shouldn't. It's one of the best lines in the league. You can't touch it.
You can't. And the thing is though, it's like people are like, well, like what if Ivan Demidov's better? Well, you know what? Like some teams have the luxury. Like I always think about the Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin like depth chart, right?
Yeah.
Evgeny Malkin is a superstar. Like he's like, and he's a second line center. You can have that. That's fine, right?
Leon Draisaitl in Edmonton, right? Like they have on most shifts, that's how they keep their depth together. But it sort of allows them to have that hero line at the end of the game where they can just stack the ice with these incredible players. Like that. That's why I'm so focused on the power play, because it's an opportunity to get all of those guys on the ice at the same time. That's not going to happen at 5-on-5 a lot, right? Yeah, exactly.
All those guys and Lane Hudson. That's going to be incredible, right? Like, just like I'm cackling just thinking about it. I can't wait for the next season to start.
I know it seems we'll blink and it'll be September, but this is the toughest because we're watching Laval, we're watching the Reinbachers of the world put on a show there, and it's the first time in a really long time that it's been just a lot of anticipation for the next season. Not in just like I can't wait to watch them again, but we expect them to be something, and Ivan Demidov is a huge part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay, so before we run out of time, if I were to ask you, what is the single thing that you want Ivan Demidov to learn over the course of the next season? What is the single thing that you want him to learn?
I would say just taking advantage of time and space when he has it, because he's not going to have it all the time. That's what we learned in the playoffs. And when you don't have it, make it. Right? Make your own space. He can do that by going through guys, going around guys. We're going to see that. We saw a lot of it of him in the KHL. So that for me is the key is him learning how to find that space, and when he does have it, to execute correctly. What about you?
So for me, I'm just going to add to that is that I want him, like, he was criticized for his back check a couple of times. And I think that there was like a split second hesitation So I want him to be more confident, right? Like I don't think his back check was that he wasn't doing it. I think that he like got caught up and was too late, right?
Yeah.
So whatever switch there is in his brain that is preventing that, I want him to overcome that. I want him to be more decisive and confident on the back check because he is going to lose the puck sometimes, right? Like he generates so much that like at some point it's going to get picked off. So instead of losing his head and then like back
Yeah.
checking too late and then everybody's like, oh, he sucks. He
Yeah.
does not. He does not. He'll be fine. He just needs
Yeah.
he just needs some maturity and growth. So that's like our Ivan Demidov season review. Like really, really honestly, like such an exciting time right now. I can't even believe it. But we do have a little bit of time today to talk about some news developments across the league, and we can relate them all back to Montreal. And that's coming up in just one moment. This episode is sponsored by Farm to Fork. If you're a fan of premium and locally farmed meats delivered straight to your door, I've got some exciting news. Farm to Fork makes it easy to get high-quality steaks, air-chilled chicken, wild-caught seafood, and more, all with no antibiotics, hormones, or GMOs. Plus, everything comes flash frozen and individually packaged for your convenience. All Farm to Fork meats are raised on Canadian farms, so when you order, you're supporting local producers, especially right now as it's time to buy Canadian. Farm to Fork meats are top notch. I've had some amazing steaks that were tender, juicy, and perfectly cooked. And their chicken is air chilled, so it's fresher and more flavorful than anything you would get in the store. And the wild caught seafood is a game changer. It's actually my favorite. It's fresh, clean, and full of flavor. And they're delivering all across Ontario and Western Quebec. And the best part, delivery is free with a minimum order of $199. You don't even have to leave the house to get this kind of quality. I've got a special code just for you. Use LOCKEDON40 to get $40 off your first order at Farm to Fork. Visit farmtoforkdelivery.ca to start stocking up on the best meats around. Again, that's LOCKEDON40 at farmtoforkdelivery.ca for $40 off your first order. Farm to Fork. Delicious, locally farmed meats delivered straight to your door. All right, some developments happened since the last time we recorded. Brendan Shanahan is out in Toronto. Matthew Darche has been hired in Long Island, on Long Island. Is it in or on? I don't know.
It should be on Long Island, but I was gonna let it go because it doesn't matter.
It's not a big deal. Leaving Mark Bergevin still without a job,
Wild.
without a GM job. And like the playoffs are chugging along, and it's either something is really wrong with Carolina or something is just really good about Florida, and I think it's just a combination of both.
Yeah, I think that I think it's reasonable to expect that this would have happened to Carolina against any team just because of history. That they've lost 15 straight games in the conference final. That's
Like,
three
one
and
more
three
and they
quarter
have
sweep. Yeah.
one more and they have a Stanley Cup win of losses.
Yeah, like the two previous ones were in recent memory, and the last one I think was in like 2009 or 10. They got swept on in the conference final. Carolina is such a fascinating team to me because they have a team culture. They have a thing. We know how Carolina plays, right? They're annoying. They want to hold the puck the entire game. They want to shoot it at you until they fired 800 shot attempts at you during the game because they don't have lethal goal scorers. They don't have guys that you're shaking in your boots about watching them come down at your goaltender.
Yeah, they're more preventing you as opposed to the other way around.
Yes. And that can only get you so far. And apparently it's halfway to the Stanley Cup, right? Like that's what we've seen time and time again with this team is it maxes out at that point. That's a team I don't know that I'm necessarily worried about Montreal becoming just because
they've got goal scorers.
Right. They have Cole Caulfield. They have Ivan Demidov. They have Patrick Laine for at least next season, right? Like
they have Juraj Slafkovsky. They have
They have like these guys who could end up being elite talents. But it is just fascinating to watch, especially because Carolina took a chance, right? They took a shot at Mikko Rantanen and that failed. And you have to like at least give them credit for pivoting adequately. They've loaded back up. They got Logan Stankoven, who's great, and they got some picks in exchange as well. So like, I think it's admirable that they tried to do that, but man, like, at some point you guys got to actually add something that stays, not like Jake Gensel who leaves immediately and Mikko Rantanen who didn't even want to be there. Like, it's at some point you have to find somebody who wants to be a Carolina Hurricane long term and who can score goals for you, which that's going to be tough to pull off, honestly.
Hear me out. Mitch Marner.
That's hilarious. It's so funny because I think that could work.
It could, but does Mitch Marner want to go there? Their pockets are not deep enough for Mitch Marner.
You don't think so? Well, yeah, I don't know that Tom Dundon will want to pay out for that. Yeah,
they're stingy.
But that's a guy who I think legitimately could help them.
Yes, 100%, 1,000,000%. Mitch Marner in Carolina would do much better than Mitch Marner in Toronto.
Yeah,
Mitch Marner could go to the grocery store.
He could go to the grocery store and nobody would bother him, right? Like, that's what he probably needs as a player, is an environment that's less, follow you on the street and take pictures of you sort of place.
Or like send death threats to your wife, which is like, what?
Never do any of that. Go outside, touch grass, go hug a friend or something. I don't know what to tell you.
He's a person.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of a person, Matthew Darche.
Yes.
He is in fact a person, and he finally got that GM job he's been after. I feel like every time a general manager position opens up, we hear Matthew Darche has interviewed for it, and then he never gets the job. And I always wondered, like, how bad at interviewing was he? Like, is he just flubbing the interview every time?
Well, this is the thing, is that I look at all of those scenarios, and pretty much all of them, they went with retreads, right?
Yeah.
Like, Matthew Darche always gets interviewed by teams who don't intend to be forward thinking. I think that's the issue, right? Yeah. It's very curious as to, who they when they allow him to talk to people and when they don't. And I think it's finally time for us to see what he's made of. And I think that, there are some other first-time NHL GMs. There are some other, young and forward-thinking and up-and-coming. And personally, for me, everything I've heard about him, under Julien Brisebois' whatever you want to call it, mentorship, tutelage, whatever it is, everything I've heard about him says that he's smarter than most of those guys.
Yeah. And look, like, I think there's a trend here. I'm going to list some teams, Laura. Yes. The Montreal Canadiens, the Chicago Blackhawks, the Philadelphia Flyers, the Anaheim Ducks, and the San Jose Sharks. All of those teams have first-time general managers at the helm, and all of them were brought in to facilitate rebuilds. All of them. I'm wondering if this means the Islanders are now open for business, and a guy like a Bo Horvat is a legitimate target for the Montreal Canadiens. Should Bo Horvat want to come to Montreal, he has a no movement clause. He would need to be cool with coming to Montreal, which may be a challenge. It might not be. But I think that's very interesting to me, that, that's the direction the Islanders went in. And there's a history of teams doing this around the league. I think it's because you can do very little harm in the beginning. You're just kind of trading off assets and building wealth of prospects and picks. Yeah. It's then when you need to turn the key and become competitive again that maybe they don't have it, but you don't find that out for a while.
In the top 10 too, like, the picks kind of make themselves, don't they? So I think it's true. And I think one of the other things too is that if a team is going in the direction of a rebuild, the person interviewing has to have sold you on the fact that they're not going to do a half-assed job of it. Yeah. I think they're like, in the interview, the conversation has to be like, will you make those difficult decisions? Like, will you not have loyalties to certain players? Will you, will you try to get your absolute most, even though fans are attached to, like, a Tyler Toffoli, for example, or, something like that, which is ironic because Tyler Toffoli ended up on another rebuilding team. Super cute, like, all of his, like, hijinks with what's their faces, Macklin Celebrini and the other guy. Will Smith, I think. I don't know. It's just really cute. Anyways, all of this to say is that, like, the person has to convince you that they have they at least are willing to have a tough few years of ugly hockey.
Yeah. And look, there is a prize that is coming up for teams that are entering rebuilds. His name's Gavin McKenna. He is going to light the world on fire. This is a guy, the tanking that we are going to see around the league for this player is going to be comical. It's going to be very bad. There are a lot of teams who are going to be really tough to watch, but that's the target.
And the Canadiens can pick off all the things they're selling.
Like that, the Islanders being chief among them. The Penguins. Are the Penguins going to do this? We don't need to mention the guy. We all know the guy. But like the Penguins should be doing everything in their power to be awful to get the next generational superstar. Just go directly from Mario Lemieux to Sidney Crosby and now to Gavin McKenna. Kyle Dubas, that is your job.
Somebody call him. Does anyone know Kyle Dubas? Tell him that. And send us Sidney Crosby. All right. Have we talked about all the things we want to talk about? I don't even know yet. Oh yes, Brendan Shanahan. That was the thing. Where does he end up? What does he do?
I don't know. I don't know that there's a job open that he would want. Maybe he steps in and is like a higher up above Matthew Darche in Long Island because he interviewed for a job there. I don't know. Very curious to see what happens there. I would love if the Leafs just hired Ken Holland to be their president, though. Just learn nothing. Learn nothing from this.
How funny
mess it all up. Hilarious.
Mark Bergevin. Mark Bergevin, I think.
Yeah.
But here's the thing though, with like Brendan Shanahan, like imagine the Shanahan plan was actually like really good and just the execution was the failure, and he goes somewhere else and he like immediately like wins the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Where his plan works.
Yeah, it could happen, but didn't. So I do think it's funny that if you were picking between Brendan Shanahan and Mark Bergevin, you probably have a case to take Mark Bergevin over Brendan Shanahan. He did more with less. Right, he had less talented teams and did way more with those teams. So I think, but far be it from me to be a guy who's stumping for Mark Bergevin in the year 2025. But like, if you had to pick between those guys, I think that the case is obvious.
Yeah. So Leafs, you should definitely hire him.
Yeah, for sure. It's an upgrade.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. All right, is it time for our trivia?
It is. Let's do our trivia. So the question from last week. We did our Cole Caulfield player review, and we pointed out that this was the first year in a long time that the Montreal Canadiens had two players with double-digit power play goals in the same season. So I asked our listeners, when was the last time that happened, where we had two players with double-digit power play goal totals, and who were they? Laura, do you remember the answer to this one?
No, I don't remember the answer. I don't think I actually guessed right.
It was our friend Super Rain who had this one right. 2009-10, Brian Giunta and Glenn Metropolitan each had 10 goals for the Montreal Canadiens on the power play. One of the wildest stats. The only one that's wilder is before that, in 2007-2008, they had 5 players with double-digit power play goals. Alex Kovalev, Thomas Plekanec, Chris Higgins, Andrei Markov, Andrei Kostitsyn. All of them had double-digit power play goals.
Wow.
The Carbonneau-Muller year power plays were legendary. Those were incredible.
They were really good. Sometimes they were the only bright spot too.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. All right. This one, because we did Caden Primo's, we talked about Caden Primo and his shutout in the game on Sunday. With that shutout, both Rocket starting goaltenders in Fowler and Primo have a playoff shutout in the same run. When was the last time a Canadiens AHL affiliate accomplished that, where they had two goalies during a playoff run at least record one shutout? When was the last time that happened for a Canadiens AHL affiliate? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below. Email it to us at lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com, and we'll shout you out on the next episode of the show.
So this could be like previous iterations, right? Like not just like when they got
correct.
Understood. All right. So there's your trivia question, which we have every single day because we are here 5 days a week, all the way until at some point in July we'll go down to 3, and then we'll go back up to 5 days a week in September when the season comes back, when the players come back, because we are your team every day as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. So please subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Please tell your friends. Please, leave reviews so that people can find us. You can also find us on social media. We're Locked On Canadiens on TikTok, Locked On Canadiens on Instagram, Locked On Canadiens on Blue Sky, and you can email us at lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. You can also leave comments on YouTube, and you can answer the trivia question, but also send us mailback questions or send us stuff. We had this amazing email from one of our longtime listeners, Jack I Face Punch, last week, which made our day entirely. We love when you guys do that stuff. It really, really makes our day. So we want to thank everyone for listening and remind you that we will be back tomorrow.